That works. Good evening, everybody. How are we today? Thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Tim Wells, class of 1999. I've got a few classmates sprinkled out there. I have the honor of being your esteemed president for this upcoming school year. So not that any of you had a say in that, but I am honored to be here. And truthfully, my role is to be your voice. The reason you're here is because you care about this place, but we don't want it to end after these meetings. If you have a concern, if you have a question, feel free to find myself or any of my associates who I will ask to stand. Fellow executive board members, I didn't prepare you for this, but go ahead and stand up. If anybody has questions, feel free to pull any one of us aside. Come on, Jeff, don't be ashamed. So any one of us can help with concerns, questions that you may have, but without further ado, I will kick this off. I'm honored to also say that tonight is the first time that we are live webcasting this meeting. So on a 30-second delay, we have the world at our fingertips. So they will hear this in just a few seconds, but we have our first alum actually listening. We have David Willard, class of 2001, has committed to be listening and watching online. So welcome, David. Thank you. And any other alums that are out there, I know you don't have a voice, but we appreciate that. But also keep in mind for future meetings, if you can't make it, this is now an outlet for you to stay in touch for the school updates, for everything else. So this took some work by the school, the advancement office, so we certainly appreciate all those efforts, but keep that in mind for future reference. Are there any other first-timers here this evening? If you could stand up and be embarrassed for a split second. We have Mr. Schaefer in the back of the room. Perfect. Two newcomers. Thank you very much. Again, the goal of this is to have at least one spokesperson representative from each class. So if you are the sole representative of your class and you can get a classmate, all the better. The more the merrier. But without further ado, I will introduce our guest speaker this evening, Mrs. Mary Russo. She is the chair of the SLU Science Department and a teacher of biology and chemistry. She earned her bachelor's degree in biochemistry at St. Joseph's College in Indiana. Mrs. Russo was a standout soccer player for St. Joseph's. As team captain, she led the school team to the NCAA Division II Final Four in 1996. She has master's degrees, plural, master's degrees from WashU and the University of Notre Dame. She joined SLU 14 years ago in 2001. In addition to her teaching duties, she leads junior retreats at the White House, served for many years as a junior class moderator, serves on the Admissions Council, and assists with Senior Project and National Honor Society. In 2013, she was one of only 4 teachers in the area to be honored by the Peabody Energy Leaders in Education program. This is one of the major teaching awards in our area, and she was nominated by her students, rightfully so. More recently, she was honored by Monsanto with their Sustainable Yield Pledge Award. This award recognizes and rewards people whose work exemplifies their pledge to make agriculture more sustainable. Her husband, Mike, is on the faculty at DeSmet, where he is the chair of their English department and head track coach. Without further ado, Mrs. Mary Russo.
I sound pretty fancy. I'm thinking of asking for a raise, I'm just saying. Okay. All right, Joe Packey emailed me 3 weeks ago and said, can you give a conversation or a talk to the alumni group on STEM at St. Louis U High? And I said, okay, sure. And ever since then, it's kind of like, I was telling John Moran this morning, when you host a party and you finally clean the bathrooms and that kind of thing, you have to host every now and again to get all the data together and whatnot. It's been kind of an exercise and a celebration. It's been fun for the members of the science department to get together, and I call them our STEMventories. Every member of the department had to give me their STEMventory. I knew of the great work that we were doing, but to kind of put it all together in the presentation that I have prepared, it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun. So let me go ahead and key things up. I have told a couple people in front, if I'm going too long, give me the Give me the sign. Oh, hang on here. There we go. There we go. Awesome. Hang on here. Cool. All right. Yay, there I am. Okay, first question. How many SLU students does it take to light a Bunsen burner? I teach AP chemistry. This is my third year in the AP Chem curriculum. And if you can see all these big boys around me, none of them can figure out that you got to put a little muscle into the flint starter to get this thing to go to create those parts. So the answer is actually zero. I've kind of already mentioned my disclaimer. You know, STEM you're going to find as I go through some certain definitions on things. It's a real integrated kind of community approach, and we've got things firing in other areas. But I've only got a certain amount of time and was able to kind of put together. So it's going to be the science. It's going to be St. Louis U High science perspective. So kind of keep that in mind. What can I feel like I can talk to very comfortably would be things like standards, changes in curriculum that are published. You know, when I organize things for our open house, and we have families coming to campus, and they ask certain questions. They read certain kinds of publications and get their information about things, very, very fancy things. STEM is one of those terms. STEM is one of those terms that our folks want to hear about. What do you guys, you know, the STEM thing seems to be important, and there's emphasis on it. What are you guys doing with it? What I'm hoping to do today is kind of show you how we've taken the certain tenets of STEM that align with our mission, that feed into the good work that we're already doing with our curriculum. We've got plenty of changes and adjustments and whatnot that I want to share with you, pictures of certain things. But the language, you'll find we don't have STEM courses, we don't have a STEM building, we don't have a STEM, but we're very much in line with the changes that you're seeing in the science world. So hopefully, if I have time, guys, I can talk a little bit. If I have the time, talk a little bit to what I've got up here. This is the face I get when I tell people I teach chemistry. It's love-hate. It's love-hate. That's my son. My husband's from New York, and he always tells me he's crying because he's wearing a Cardinals hat. I think I'm in trouble. Okay, never mind. But you think back to your days, and you guys are all, from St. Louis U High. And if you go back in the days, we used to have these laboratories, and it was stadium seating. Does anyone remember the old stadium seating that we had? And it was very much sage on the stage kind of a thing. I remember this from my high school and college science classes. Big lecture halls, and then we'd break out to the labs, which may or may not have lined up with what it was we were doing in the lecture. Everyone nice and neat and organized and paying attention, but are they really? Are they really? We need scientists in the 10 years ahead. They, the president's advisors, say we need them by thousands more than we are now presently planning to have. The federal government can deal with only parts of this difficulty. It must and will do its part. The task is a cooperative one. Federal, state, local governments, and our entire citizenry must all do their share. Anybody? Eisenhower, I heard it. Eisenhower, after the Russians, shot Sputnik, started the space race. None of this is new. So what I'm doing by sharing that is not dismissing anything, because when I toured the Monsanto facility last summer with some work that I do with them there, they said every 6 months the sequencing technology changes on them. Every 6 months. It was part of the tour. It was a factoid that they gave us. And we need folks in the workforce who are going to be able to keep up, right? Innovators and thinkers and whatnot. It's kind of where this STEM type of initiative came out, but it wasn't just STEM. Anybody in here part of our visioning groups? We had such a wonderful couple of years where we brought in some special groups, some alums, and we had some faculty, and we had some special guests that came to campus, and we talked to, my group, for example, was Curriculum for the 21st Century. One of our speakers, Dr. Michael Thompson, clinical psychologist, has written several books, knows boy education, knows a lot of things about private and independent schools. He does focus on the family. He came to St. Louis U High, and I remember sitting in the Schulte Theater and taking notes, as I usually do, and he talked about four components that male education had to have. Before he listed these components, he talked about how males were getting in trouble, and they're out of their seats, and then they're doing these things, and they're taught to be submissive, and they're taught to behave, and he talked to these things. He said, boy education, male education should have some movement. They need to be up out of their chairs. They need to be working in teams. They need to have some sort of aspect of competition with some sort of tangible product and end. So whether we're going to call it STEM or POGIL or the NGSS or the AP changes, they're all speaking to the same thing. Science is process. Science is not a list of facts to memorize. So how can we, in our classrooms, continue to promote that? I have a picture, it's kind of hard to see. It's our chemistry. It was on the, I forget the publication. Kathy Cott does this exercise, oxidation reduction, and they make Christmas ornaments, little 2-inch by 2-inch cut steel squares, and they reduce a copper salt and make these certain kinds of Christmas patterns. So they do that, but they also put together a wreath that we sell at the auction to make money for Honduras. That's what we're talking about, right? So the kids get to see their work. How are we providing opportunities for something like that? Ooh, that's going to pull them in, isn't it? That's going to engage them. Tangible product. It scares me when I look at it. Thank God it's not my class, This is our theater tech shop. So we've got all of these very wonderful departments on campus. How is there a way that we can look to kind of get out of our department silo and look to collaborate? You're going to find a lot of language in our new visioning process that's going to look to continue to further structure collaboration between the departments. What this gentleman is building, and it's not from a kit, folks. You're going to find lots of kits on things. These guys are in AP Environmental Science, and they researched, studied, designed, and built in our theater tech shop with the help of Mr. Tim Moore. This is Bill Anderson's class, if any one of you know Mr. Anderson. What's called an aquaponics tank. So it's soil-less plant growth. It's growing plants on this rock bed that's sustainable. What we have down here, folks, that's where the goldfish live. Have you seen one of these things before? And their waste goes into the water, and then there's a pump that goes around. It's really noisy, so the teachers who are in this classroom, it's really noisy. It busted open a couple of times and spilled a little bit of water, but progress can be painful. But growth. And then the email comes out, hey, get your herbs. We're busting at the seams. I got too much growing. And well, we're looking to take this and do more. You're going to find a lot of initiatives at a lot of places and a lot of really good intentions from folks who do community gardens and do aquaponics, and then that person leaves or there's no program in place, and then it ends up kind of stuck in a corner somewhere, taken apart. And you're not seeing that at St. Louis U High. It's certainly my pleasure to be able to work with some of the most amazing, truly amazing colleagues. A good college prep science curriculum, it's going to be biology and chemistry and physics. That's not changed. I've visited schools from Indianapolis to Kansas City and in between, public and private, and looked at curriculum and crunched numbers and class sizes and square foot per student and done all of that. Biology and chemistry, physics is, some schools might start with physics and maybe do the biology later, but it's still there. It's the approach in those classes that's changed, right? And I'll talk to a little bit of that, and the electives, guys, and the electives. When you look at our seniors as they move on, they've got quite a few different things that they can choose from that are, some been around for a while, some kind of newly created types of electives. I mentioned this, so what has changed, and I want to tell you why it's changed. The approach to those core subjects. What about it? No more cookbook, right? No more open this up and read it and do it. They're so concrete. It's so appropriate, really, for our freshmen to be that way, but our seniors, they get to struggle, right? And maybe that creeps into juniors and sophomore year. That the freshmen need our help as they figure out how not to be a concrete thinker. But how can we bring into our laboratory experiences actual training on skills, but application? And I'm going to show you a list of the labs that the typical SLU science student, and it is one of our strengths. I don't think there's any other school, as I analyze things, that provided the science experience for the whole student body than St. Louis U High in my research. And co-curriculars and community involvement, hopefully I'll mention a couple of things there too. Here's the why. Here's the why. Now, what you don't read about and what, the people that read this necessarily about STEM is that buzzword, right? STEM, STEAM, stream, something. I think they call that a Jesuit education, right? So it's the next generation science standards that we pour through. We just can't say, be more hands-on, go. It doesn't work like that. We got to have structures. We got to have mentors. We got to have professional development. And there's such fantastic networks in place for us to study these kinds of things. So you look at these science standards, which are, it says, for the states, by the states, or whatever it is, half the states have adopted them. And, as a private school, we always get a little more flexibility, but it's a metric. It's something we should look at. And when you look at the core ideas, you're going to find in their core ideas a reference to 4 different things, but one of them is engineering practice. How can they figure out, given a problem, and design, and not just think about it, but actually build it with some sort of particular end, and maybe revel in the fact that 80% of the time it's going to be junk, but that's where the learning occurs. Right? They got to put themselves out there. That's a big thing with the guys. Science practices, and then the cross-cutting stuff. How can we look to link up with not only other academic departments at St. Louis U High, but with people outside? In 2001, when I was hired, alums would call, hey, I'm doing this. You guys think that maybe, you're interested in, and it was very much, kind of put your head down and go, and it just kind of was the culture, perhaps, then. And that has very much changed. That whole collaborative, team kind of, it's not just us. As a matter of fact, one might even say it's a disservice to the boys not to bring you in, not to show them what certain scientists and what these careers can do for you. You're going to find that there's a lot of that in the last 5 years infused into our science department, inside the curriculum and out and out. Why? College, board, AP. When the rubber hits the road, we offer all these AP electives that we're very devoted to. And in 2013, in the years leading up to 2013, science was going to get changed. Again, why? It's process, man. It's process. It's not a list of things to be memorized. So they started with biology, with the idea, then to chemistry, then to the physics, which they cut into 2 different tests, to force teachers to give the students the time to create and test and learn. Student-generated protocols. Let me tell you something about that. I'm an AP chemistry teacher, and I got to let these guys design their own labs. It's scary for me, but that's scary for teachers. You know, you think of these new STEM educators and new people kind of coming into it who are supposed to have all of these answers and whatnot. And what do? I go to my network. I go to my colleagues. I go to alums. I make some phone calls. I learn some things. And we kind of push on. There's Mr. B. Who had Mr. B? Anybody in here had Charlie Busenhart? 47th year, maybe, I think, at St. Louis U High, I want to say. We share a classroom, one of my mentors. Methane bubbles, anyone remember that one? Okay. So, metrics, suggestions, tangible, that we can apply as a lens rather than something a bit more general, as far as what you're going to read with some of the STEM literature. You know what I mean? Standard schmandards. Gosh, it's where people are. That is Mark Watney. No, it's not Mark Watney, it's Andy Weir. Science department, we have a summer reading initiative, and it was our turn to pick the book. So last year, we got a student group together of juniors, because they were going to be seniors, and we got them all together, and we said, hey, let's do this thing, let's read all these books. Oh, it was fun. We were reading books, we were loving things and hating things, and right off the bat, we wanted science fiction. We wanted something that was appropriate for summer read. We wanted something that was realistic enough and inspiring and topical, and this book called The Martian. Did anyone have a chance? I don't know, to a couple of you maybe. Well, there's a movie coming out October 2nd, Matt Damon, big time, also produced by some big time guy the kids know, that we're pretty excited about. We found this book initially pretty early on in the search, but it's got a little grit to it. If you can imagine being stranded on Mars, you might drop the occasional expletive. So we sent a note home and we said, we love it. People need to read it. Why? Mark Watney was an engineer and a botanist stranded on Mars, had to figure out how to survive until the next mission got there. So the students got to read about grit and thinking outside the box and how am I going to get it done. It was a fantastic story. Andy Weir is wearing a SLU cap. We sent it to him and we said, hey, would you mind? He has been so wonderful. He has been so wonderful and responsive to any to requests. He doesn't fly. We thought maybe we could fly him in and he'd talk to the students, maybe Skype. He wrote The Martian initially for a group of 3,000 of his followers on some blog he was doing. His nerdy friends, some NASA folks and some other folks. And when they really loved it and word got out, it became a New York Times bestseller. Standard schmandards. People love this stuff. They kind of want to know why on things. It's no longer, you're in front of the classroom, I believe you, I'm going to write it down. Yes, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. I'm not going to be disruptive here, but I need to know why we're doing this. And I get it. They should ask that. Why are we doing it? Even if it is simply a rote training exercise or whatnot. Well, let's talk about how the brain works and let's do those things. People are into it. Does anyone recognize the other picture I have up there? Has anyone in the room heard of the Big Bang Theory? It's a show that's super popular. Of the top 6 male actors on television, 4 of them, top paid, 4 of them are on this show. 4 of them are on this show. Nerdy physics guys at MIT. And people love it. And people love it. I want to know why. So not only are there standards coming in and technology changes happening and cultural shifts about people's human curiosity, and we need to respond. And we need to respond. That sage on the stage is necessary at points. It just can't be like it was. We got to be able, and it's Ignatian, it's very Ignatian, to meet the guys where they are coming in. And then to unlock potentials and horizons that they didn't realize for themselves. Here's some of the AP language, right? Here's some of the AP language. And I'll pick this up, get a little faster. Less time on factual recall. This is the AP chemistry curriculum framework, but you'll find it in the biology one, you'll find it in the physics one. Less time on factual recall, more time on inquiry-based learning. And when you actually look at the I'm thinking, what did they actually cut out of here? They still got to know everything. It's kind of stressful for the guys, but yeah, they're doing labs. Less lecture. That's uneasy for the guys. I mean, I tell you what, it's like, Mrs. Russo, some days I get it. Can you just lecture today? It's true. But now I'm seeing a turnover now that I'm in year 3 of this new curriculum. It's where they are. They're ready for it. They're hungry for it. They're designing a plan for collecting data, analyzing data, applying mathematic routines, and connecting concepts in and across domains. We've got to be able to develop and respond to these certain things. So a typical SLU student would come in, guys, and take biology. And I taught biology here for 10 years. I taught people in this room biology. And let me tell you, sage on the stage, right, guys? I mean, it was me going through slides, having interesting conversation. I'm not bad in front of a group. But it's still 10% retention rate with lecture. That's why they write stuff down. 10%. Oh, they're SLU students. Okay, 20%. That's enough. You know what I mean? That's why they got to write stuff down. Lab work, 30%. Teaching, presentation, study group, 90%. 90%. And they don't have time to, how are we using this class time? We got to explain some things. They're going to want some things. I'm not suggesting that we've kind of dropped all of the old methods. Certainly not. But this biology curriculum, I wouldn't recognize it if I've been out for 4 years. I wouldn't recognize it if I went back to it. Changes, good changes, appropriate changes, changes that embrace the good work that we were already doing, holding the students accountable for the baseline knowledge and content that they have to know with the experience. So your freshman son will do all these labs. It's all year. It takes all year. But they'll do all these labs. Your sophomore son will do all of these labs. 20 of the 23, I think there's 23 up there. We'll do certain things. And then as we transition and they're able to become more of an abstract thinker, as we see in our junior and senior years, you're going to see different things. You're going to see different things. Paul Bodendistel, who's an alum and has been with us 20 years or so, the AP, just to make sure, the AP physics, just to make sure we wouldn't try to cram it all in 1 year, they did 2 tests. So now we have to do, but it forces our hand. Okay, these guys have to be given the time and opportunity to try, to fail, to learn, to retry, to present, etc. And they're doing that. When I asked the guys to share with me some of their STEM inventories, I think I'll patent that or something anyway. Lab design project, this is one of Paul's things. Besides all of the other things that you saw students spend a week. Let me tell you, for a teacher to want to give up a week, we're all possessive. It's my curriculum, it's my class. I can't give up a week. For us to give up a week, for Paul, if you guys know Paul, he is outstanding in the classroom, as many of my colleagues are in the science department, and he's been pushed. he's had to let the students try and fail and do it and create, present, etc., with lots of success. And let's not sugarcoat it, they're learning with other things that aren't working out as well. But it's movement in a good direction. Guys, it's movement in a good direction. It's not the wholesale turning over of curricula. It's very appropriate response to where we are technologically and as a society, and where we are from a mission standpoint. I talked about Bill Anderson earlier. It's kind of neat in some of these senior electives. They do get to do some of this stuff. They'll come in here in the spring. I think they do the garbage lab, and they take all the garbage cans and they pour them out, and they see what's in there, and they inventory it. Sounds interesting, right? It sounds interesting. Hands-on. Hands-on. But he's doing the community garden. He had, in conjunction with Tim Moore in our theater tech department, they built dog houses for the Humane Society. They built the aquaponics tank. They built 23 raised beds for our community garden. At my son's school, they did the community garden last year, and now it's two raised beds, and now it's a non-entity. The person moved on. We're committed to this, and it's not just Bill, it's the Sustainability Club, it's Anne-Marie Ludholtz and in the history department, it's beds that people from the community have registered for, and it's beds that certain folks in this building have registered for. It's an active and lively and bright and vibrant place. It's right next to our new Jesuit residence, if you haven't seen it. The only thing with our community garden is it's kind of tucked behind the field house. I wish we had a better visual. So Education Week, what do we read? You guys read St. Louis Magazine. Well, we read the National, Science Teacher Association. We read these other things that are going to talk about a lot of stuff when we're taking a look and rolling up our sleeves and digging in. Education Week, it's just one of my favorites. Really resonates with what we're trying to do at St. Louis U High as far as STEM is concerned. STEM develops a set of thinking, reasoning, teamwork, investigative, and creative skills. Creative skills. I need them taking their art classes, people. Observation is their most important skill. How are they going to come up with their unique research questions if they can't sit, observe, reflect, write, return to it, and then their questions come up? Because these guys, they're on their phones, they're moving 100 miles an hour. So how is it that we can slow them down? Now that's a good service. The observation and the creative mindset that goes along with it is so important. When I took over from Charlie Busenhart, AP Chemistry, I went to a workshop, and it was kind of neat. And the first day of this week-long workshop, they make you sit and take the AP test. Makes sense. This new version. It was the new version. I had no experience of the old version, but I'm making new friends and I'm meeting people and I'm taking the test. And then we're talking about it afterwards, and everyone is just a buzz, a flutter. It's all writing. It's all writing. It's all communication. Where's the math? It's explain why this is. So numbers people, the math is still going to be there. We want to see your work, but you better in a neat, organized, thoughtful manner. One of my favorite sayings to the guys is, and I forget who was it that said it, I'm sorry for the length of this letter. I didn't have time to write you a short one. They go on and on and on without any thought on things. The writing. We got to have good communicators. We got to have good writers. We got to have folks who are creative and thinking. Golly, I got to tell you, it sounds a lot like Jesuit education. I'm not dismissing it, folks, though. I'm not. I've talked to the changes, important changes. That sage on the stage, change. This article that I referenced in the previous slide talks about the 6 characteristics of a great STEM lesson. So this is about as much as you'll get as far as, kind of input on what it is beyond the standards references that I've already made and whatnot. Real world issues. Engineering design process. Engineering design process. You know, the Jesuits, contemplatives in action. You've heard this before, right? The Jesuit saying, a contemplative in action. So when I've tried to jump into what engineering design process, I'm sure there's a very formal thing and different workshops that I could go to, and that's wonderful. But back when I started teaching, it wasn't about STEM, it was about how are we creating critical thinkers. That was the buzzword, critical thinking skills, critical thinking skills. So I'm gonna dovetail off of our Jesuit influence and say contemplatives in action find critical thinkers in action. So let's think it up and let's do it. That's the difference. And that's the difference. Look at number 5. We're just not holding hands and singing Kumbaya. They are still held to very, very rigorous math and science content in their student learning. They're just applying it. And matter of fact, to a certain, like I mentioned before, sometimes saying, you know, can you just kind of lecture today? Can you just kind of tell me some of these things? Oh, we expect a lot. We really do expect a lot of these guys. I tried to find one of my favorite posters, but this wasn't the critical thinking in action. It's one of the Jesuit vocational posters. So it's so good. I forget if it's from the 60s, maybe. He's reading, saw on a board with the teeth of an alligator, you know, contemplative in action, contemplative in action. I got my twist on there, critical thinking in action, in action. A couple of slides, let me run through it. You guys have been so wonderful. So now you know what it's like to be in my classroom. They're building, they're designing, they're building. There's our raised beds in our community garden. They're filling. They ask for our help, right? So it's not necessarily just, there's Mr. Anderson, and I apologize, it's a little dark, but super successful, super successful. What are we looking at here? We're looking at students who are opening up bacterial plasmids and transforming and putting in certain genes into those things. And we know it was successful because they glow. How cool is that? How cool is that? One of Mr. O'Keefe's favorites, so Mr. Tim O'Keefe, I don't know if anyone remembers Tim O'Keefe, is the guys will walk into genetics and the skeleton will be on the floor, a little bit of crime scene tape, there's been a murder. And they'll spend all week, and the suspects, I'm usually a suspect. And Dan Shelburne was always a suspect, if you remember. And they got to go through a DNA fingerprinting exercise to figure that out. Yeah, competitive, who's going to get the answer first, specific tangible kind of an outcome, right? Group working and learning. AP Physics 2, which was a new course for us yesterday, and hard to see, the prototype of a drone that would drop water balloons. How that's advancing God's kingdom, I don't know. But this is their proposal as a group. It was a small class, and they put together this proposal on how things would cost. And it's not a kit, folks. They went to Home Depot and put it together. And crashed it a few times and learned. They knew the landing gear was junk. They knew it, and it crashed, and they learned. They celebrated, and they learned, and they redid it again. I'm going to kind of, there it is. It worked. It was nice. It was nice. I think you guys will see a little bit. I'm going to skip over this. I feel like I'm going too long. So it was one of their initial flights. If we have time, I'll kind of show you. Community connections, tons of them. Didn't have as many, I feel like, because we're making, and I credit Melissa, I credit the advancement team, Joe and John, helping us make those relationships and those connections is so important. It's important for our students. But I got to tell you, we are in a fantastic, I don't have to tell you, you know it, we're right next door to the Science Center. We walk there all the time. I don't have to rent a bus. They use my science lab over the summer, so guess what? I call them up and say, hey, I'm coming over, and you're not going to charge me. We've got relationship. We've got relationship with our community. Forest Park, the zoo, Barnes Jewish. Tim O'Keefe will take his guys down to the cadaver lab, his anatomy guys down to the cadaver lab at St. Louis U. Shaw Garden. My gosh, in a fantastic location that we take advantage of, and I got some other kinds of things up there. Programs that students are involved in. And one thing I've noticed though about students and trends and things that you see them doing, there's these really wonderful programs that are out there, but they take commitments of 8 weeks or 7 weeks or whatnot. So it's kind of been hard to get those guys because they're doing baseball, they're doing all these things. A week workshop. So if there's anyone out there trying to plan something, a week workshop, we'll get our guys in, you know? Oh, it's 8 weeks. Gosh, I don't know if I can do that. Because they're doing so much. But a lot of good stuff, Our Robin Wellen, she does our science club, and we've already had a speaker in, junior Alex Tarter, to talk about some of the physics research that he's done. And let me tell you what's most important about what Alex was doing for our guys, how he made the connections, how he met the professors, how he approached getting a research position, and then his research was awful cool as well. But that piece, and the guys were eating it up. We need to do more of that. So this is our first semester. I went on Google Drive and took a couple of screenshots, and you can't see it, that's fine, but you know, we've got some folks in there. We want to bring you guys in to talk with us, to talk with the students. We need to make more intentional connection that way. There's Alex in the middle. There's our promotional poster. It says, come in and see his captivating research on the Bose-Einstein condensation, as well as his post-Slew life as a scientist. Don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime presentation. We might have went a little overboard on that. That's okay. Yeah, there's Alex right there in the middle. WashU, Dr. Judy Golden has been coming in since I taught her son, and I forget what year he is. He's out of Purdue now. So she's been with us 8, 9, 10 years. And here's what's nice about having relationships with the community. The first year she came in, it was good. It was good. The second year was better. The third year just blew us out of the water. So when you're able to make that connection and have that sustainability with who it is that comes in, now we've got a program. She brings in her research assistant. She's a neuroscientist at WashU. The female there, she's an MD, PhD candidate, holding a human brain. She brings in human brain and spinal columns. And Judy knows that before we do this, we pray. We thank God for the gift that it is to donate your body to science. So we do it right. We do it right, and that's because we have this relationship with Judy. On the left, I think he's a med student. He's a med student. They've come the last couple of years. Most exciting for me, there's John Webb. That's one of ours. Yes. You know? Junior at WashU, he was our prep news editor. 2012, maybe, John Webb. I'm kind of blanking. But he came back his freshman year at WashU, and he was chatting us up in the science department. It's one of the best parts of our job. And he said, yeah, I'm thinking about neuroscience. And I said, are you? Well, do you remember who brought in the brains freshman year? And I hooked him up. How cool is that? I got to do that. Gosh, did that make me feel good? I'd like to do more of that. And that means me making connections. My colleagues continuing to make connections with folks. There we've got our SLU students. I love this picture. If you can see the kiddo in the red, just like, I don't think I like this. Holding the brain. Who wants to hold the brain? The one year they came in, a little ornery class, and I said, no one gets to hold the brain. They were being punished. No one holds the brain. Okay. This is Tim O'Keefe doing some sequencing stuff over the St. Louis Science Center. I could go on, and I'm gonna stop because I want to take your questions, but our technology is over the top. I go to conferences all over the place, and our veneer probe inventory, and I screenshot it. You can't see a darn thing, and that's okay. We are deeply committed to the veneer probe technology that will allow us to do things like EKG, heart rate, blood pressure, pH sensors and temperature probes and full set, so I don't have to compete with another lab, and I can do things when I want. We're vetted there. And we've been there for a while. We've got the Medical Careers Club, if you were to read this. Not only do they bring in speakers, but they run the blood drive. That's what we mean by intentional, finding things that student council used to do. Well, that makes sense. The Medical Careers Club should run the blood drive, right? Just little things that just never occurred to us, you know? The Science Club and the Sustainability Club. I didn't even talk about our green roof and our sustainability initiatives. I'm almost done. Stay with me. Cross-cutting ideas, because I'm representing science department. What is here are other things that colleagues have asked or have come down the pipe as far as email or whatever. Mr. Kevin Foy in our history department has already met with about a group of 50 kids who might be interested in some trips to visit places. And one of the places he wants to go this year that's new is Silicon Valley and do a tech tour trip. There's some sort of entrepreneurial medical launch with St. Louis U that he's trying to set up, and he's chatted with me about it, and some other kinds of competitions and whatnot. Robotics, of course, I don't know if Jeff Pitts is here, but he's been so wonderful in helping us out. And then Miss Tracy Lyons from our math department in doing building a robot. That's great, but let me tell you what they do. They get out and they educated 100 students last year. And I talked with Tracy before I got here, and Tracy said, we're already set up for 9 schools this fall. Grade schools. Here's what you can do. The students will run. Yeah, outreach. We're not just going to build a robot, break it, and put it in a closet. It happens. Our school culture, golly, I like working here. We have to do these peer-to-peer observations. We have these mix-it-up lunches twice a year. They get us out of our siloed department offices, and they bring in these quizzes, and they have little competitions, because we need it too. It creates collegiality. Again, like I said, I want to collaborate more with the math department and do some more deliberate kinds of things. Our summer reading program I've already talked to about, and half of what I'm doing is really chemistry teaching. The other half is what I model for the guys: how to treat people, how to take care of yourself, how to make connections, and those conversations that I can have when they're in their group work. And we can model it as a faculty. We're set up that way. We're set up that way. Jim Laniers, for 20 years, has been, 6th graders in the city, folks who might not necessarily get out to see nature in a very specific, intentional way, science and math, to folks who are grateful for the opportunity, still doing it. Still doing it. So it's these cross-cutting ideas. I won't spend a lot of time here, but we've got fun things in the works. I wish you could have been here. It was the whole science department, and we're in a room last year, and there's a visioning thing going on, and we got the architects coming in, and it's time. It's time for our ask, right? But we're going to do it carefully, and we're going to evaluate all of our spaces, and we're going to go to other schools, and we're going to take a look at things. But Google Docs, and the Google, I tell you what. Some stock, with Google Docs, we all got online, even Charlie Busenhart, we all got online, and as a group opened up a spreadsheet and started evaluating and talking, going back and forth and rating all of our lab spaces, which we could share with the architect. It was fun. Yeah, we've made some requests. Square footage-wise, we have fantastic labs. You won't find many schools that have the square footprint that St. Louis U High has. It's time for an update. It's time for an update. We require physics. We have one proper physics lab. It's time for an update, an extra lab, and some research space and a greenhouse. Anyway, professional development, our strategic planning, visioning, and stuff. So kind of, Washington Post did a really fantastic, this is my last slide. Did a really fantastic, STEM can be a polarizing word for some people, I think. Liberal arts education has really taken a hit, quite honestly. People need to have technical skills. I wouldn't argue that. We need to apply our learning. There's no doubt. But if you can find this, the article, the premise was, be careful with the STEM word, right? Quoted Steve Jobs. It's in Apple's DNA that technology alone is not enough. That it's technology married with liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields us the results that makes our hearts sing. It's awesome. Observations first, and then questions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I went long, but I would certainly entertain a question or two if anyone had one. I know there might be other talking heads on the agenda. Yes, sir. HOSA? Can you spell that? I'm not familiar. You know, what did he start with? He started with, have you heard of? I gotta tell you, communication is so key. Don't assume. Don't assume. Let's team up on this thing. I would love feedback like this, other programs, and you got kiddos at other schools. I would love to hear about those things. An email to mrusso@slu.org. Give us more fuel for the fire. Absolutely, absolutely.
That may actually be part of the answer to this question. How can we help?
And maybe, I don't know if Melissa kind of wants to come in on this, but intentional connections. And one thing I didn't talk to, it's going to come out of our visioning process and these summer curriculum institutes that we're going to initiate. Really got to comb through our curriculum again. Internship opportunities, and internship makes it sound like it's some large, it's the week thing. Can a student come for a week and meet with people and talk and see what's going on, kind of a thing? I would love to get something like what I was able to do for John Webb, just as a connector. Mm-hmm. A day, correct. Let's vision this out. Right. That's on more effort and intentional pairing. We've been, Watlow Corporation has been so good to us, and Express Scripts has been so good to us. Dr. Judy Golden's lab, Washington U has been good to us. But contacting our advancement office and just kind of letting them know, and then Melissa contacting me so I can figure things out. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for your presentation. I have to tell you that what you presented is entirely foreign to what occurred in my generation as many years. I'm not sure I wouldn't struggle with it. I'll tell you why. I think the key word in my career in science and engineering is the discovery of elements. Simplicity, beauty, God's creation. And to do that, it takes a lot of science. It takes a lot of probing, a lot of failure, a lot of time. And I'm wondering if you just comment on how you can do all this and allow that time to discover.
There's no doubt that anything worthwhile is a struggle, and we've started initiatives and failed at initiatives and learned from. I have a very good friend at another school who does an intentional kind of research elective, and bring my guys over to her place to meet with her female students to talk about their as a start, so I can learn about what it is, how they have things set up. Tried to mentor a couple of students with a long-term project. That takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of time. And I found that my energies and efforts were needed elsewhere. I don't think I could give to the project that these students wanted to. So we got a question to answer there. Is that, do we look to you all to help with students who have these, for example, like Jeff Pitts has come in to help with our robotics program. No one with the specific engineering expertise on staff like such to get involved. And part of it is a lot, I know myself, I can speak for myself, it's the fear of the unknown and the uncertainty and putting in all the time when you don't feel like you've got the time, and with the risk-reward failure. But most of this is in motion right now, and we have success with it, and we make ourselves crazy, but it is for bringing the students around to the glory of the beauty in God's creation. Just what you said, it's what drives us. So we'll continue. Bill's got the community garden. Robin's got the science club. It's a true team effort. We get together, and it's one of the nicest things about our setup. The science department, a lot of places I went to, people had their classrooms, and you're stuck in there. And just the idea that you can maybe be in a place like our science office, for example, and how intimidating for these poor kiddos to have to come into the science office to find us, but we're all sitting there chatting, exchanging ideas. It's where most of the magic happens, in the science office. But you're right, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. So, but there's good work there to be done. You know, and we'll continue to vision out that process and, you know, let you know what's rolling.
To expand upon one comment you made on the side, being a judge who contemplates an action is the same thing as critical thinking. Because my understanding of being contemplative an action is based upon spiritual exercises of mission.
Oh, yeah.
Deeper process.
There's no doubt. So please don't. If you could get inside my head, you ever seen The Wizard of Oz when Dorothy's caught in the tornado? That's my brain. So hopefully with my, well, to be a critical thinker requires reflection and discernment. There's no doubt. To be a successful, functioning, critical thinker. And I use the word critical thinker because that was the word that was used when I was going through in the 80s and 90s. It was more of a language tie, I guess, that I was trying to. Mm-hmm.
I would think that's what scientists want to do. And that's the connection I see. I was wondering if you understand.
And the question, and hopefully I'm not going in an okay direction. How do I create opportunities in my classroom for the student to have time to stop, reflect? You saw all those labs. We're working. We're working. And then there's content in there, and there's the lab work, et cetera. And I think a lot of that comes in, you'll see blogging, you'll see journaling, you'll see quiet time kind of brought into the, I tell the students the hardest thing they do in our school day is a 2-minute examen at the start of 6th period. To be able to have the discipline to take 120 seconds to ask yourself, what did I do today? Where did I fall short? And how can I do better? It takes practice and discipline. And a lot of them will use that time as I might use that time to kind of let your mind unfold and maybe take a few deep breaths and that kind of thing. But actually, that's the time for exercise. So it's kind of in. No doubt. Yeah, absolutely. It would help. Yeah. And more meaningful connection, maybe, might be nice. Agreed. And it isn't in our job, especially with these overscheduled youngsters, to help them figure out a way to carve out in their day time for that, which includes things like a look at our schedule. We'll do that over the summer with our curriculum institute, 7 classes every day, homework and 7 subjects every night. That's intense. Where's the time for discernment and reflection and whatnot? Yeah. Oh, follow up? Go ahead.
I just have to say, I would go home at night, and I have to confess this, I would spend 2 hours on math problem because I was stupid, all right? But I got it. I don't know what those 2 hours are with the students. Me too.
Yeah, I know. And I gotta tell my students, because that's a lot of my students, I teach the accelerated chemistry and the AP chemistry, and they'll do that, and they'll fixate on something, and I can't blame them for it. They're perfectionists, they're curious, they're used to getting things right and figuring things out, and all of a sudden 2 hours have gone by, and I have to have a conversation about, we expect things from you, things that have to get done every night, and what kind of service are you doing for yourself? And not that it's not an important endeavor, this is nothing that I can answer super directly. It's something that we gotta think about as educators, no doubt. But as far as expectations, and put all their co-curriculars and all those things that we want them to do on top of that, it's challenging. So we got with many, many conversations on how to approach the subject and time management and those kinds of things.
I think your slide showing the students working on the GFP, I think that's an excellent picture of what I can see they talk about because that requires such discipline and concentration. It looks like activity when they're hovering around the slide, but they're injecting a bacterial plasmid and changing the DNA of an organism and expecting an outcome. And where they're doing that nowadays is in regenerative tissue over at or I work in a lab where we're doing cell membrane, searches for treatments for osteoporosis, and that was the technique we're using at Washington University School of Medicine. So it thrills me to see you doing that discipline focused thing that I know that requires students to take work for PhD, but it's not, oh, how am I going to do that? It's sequential and it's sitting down and then reflecting, and that's really
Yeah. I mean, I worked in a molecular cardiology lab out of college for 2 years and did all of those techniques and studied all those things. And then 10 years later, went back for my master's at WashU and took a genetics course. The chemistry is the same. The technology, the lasers used, that's different. The chemistry there, though, that's applied was so wonderful to be able to notice. So it's still, even transfecting those bacterial plasmids is a fantastic, elegant experience. Thank you so much for everything that you do for St. Louis U High. We couldn't do it without your help and your support and your good, thoughtful questions, which we always welcome your feedback to. It's all about your sons and your grandsons and and their experience here. So I felt very privileged to be able to have an audience such as yourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you again to Mary. If that is not an example of why you should be proud to have gone here and why your sons should love being students here, I don't know what is. That was true passion. If I had a code for CE credits, I would give it out because you've all earned them. And truthfully, I appreciate everything that Mary has done to put that together and to try and explain it to those of you that understand it. And for those of you like me, that most of it flew over your head. We understood as much as we could and stayed awake. So it was wonderful. But truthfully, thank you, Mary, for everything. Next up, Jeff Cernisek is here to talk about alumni giving. So come on up, Jeff. Go ahead.
I hope I don't mess you up. Very good.
I want to thank Mary too. You know, it's neat to see the colleagues of ours open to change and what they're excited about. We get excited about too. And it kind of reminds me of like a year ago when we were all sitting in this room. We brought together the classes of 90 and up, and we kind of said, what were we doing right? What were we doing wrong? And it's kind of humble to stand up here and say, okay, we're listening to what you're saying. We may not be doing this right. We might not be doing it right or wrong, but we're willing to change. So thanks, Mary, for doing what you do for us. And going along those lines, we kind of listened to what you guys had to say. You know, it goes back to when we look at our alumni, and you have the numbers up there. 3,200 of you guys made a gift last year, 27%. And I know you're going to ask, well, how do we compare to other schools? You know, if you look at the SMET, they're under 10% giving participation-wise. When you look at Regis, they're at 21% giving-wise. When you look at St. X in Cincinnati, Ohio, they're at about 28%, so they're comparable to us. The national average is about 10 to 15% participation. So SLU, if you look at us on a comparative level, 27%, I always raise up, round up, 30% giving is pretty good. And the thing is that is the highest number in 7 years that we've had. And again, when you look at almost 300 more donors than last year, how did we do that? Again, we're listening to you. We did February Frenzy, 61 new donors in February Frenzy. Giving Tuesday, Giving STL Day, those one-day hits that you saw us doing, garnered more gifts. I think we raised, what, 50,000, John? I think he's in the room somewhere. 50,000 in February Frenzy alone. So we are listening. We are trying to take things and look and see. And again, it's that humbling experience saying, okay, we weren't talking to you the right way. Let's talk to you in the right way this year. And these are the results of that effort. Alumni gifts total over $4,249,000 this last year. With the help of a lot of sponsors' contributions, Cashball set a new record. We raised over $1 million in Cashball. And in fact, in a matter of a half hour, we raised $300,000 in Fund a Need alone. So not too many school auctions in a matter of a half hour raise a total of what we did in 30 minutes. So I just think that it just shows how strong our community is, and it shows the hard work and effort of volunteers, alumni, faculty, staff, all of us trying to make sure that we're getting the need that we need here at the school. Scholarship Golf Classic, we raised over $170,000 last year. That was a new effort 3 years ago that we were trying to re-engage some alumni in different ways, and this was one of them. And again, we have not only with corporate news sponsorships, but we now have some long-term relationships, as Mary was mentioning, that we can foster into some bigger and better things down the road. And this is where the biggest impact is when you look at the fully endowed scholarships. We had 3 new fully endowed scholarships, almost $1 million in just scholarship name dollars alone, and then 6 new partially endowed, which is usually about $150,000 is a partially endowed, and a fully endowed is about $300,000. So we had a great year, and things are still continuing. We're looking at how can we continue to improve. The top 10 classes of last year, Tim, I don't see class of 99 on there, but no, these guys, we work with you on a regular basis. I know I met many of you during the reunion process. There's some in the room that I'm working with currently for the reunion giving. but it just shows you that we have a very loyal and supportive community, and we really couldn't do it without you guys. When Mary mentions the things that, how can you help? You do. When we ask you to roll your sleeves up and make phone calls, you show up on those pizza emo nights and sit when there's a Cardinal game possibly going on in those November and October timeframes. And then when we ask you guys to get classmates and start Facebook pages and tweet things out for us, you do those things. So on behalf of the advancement staff, and I'm going to be short, is that I just can't thank you enough for helping us. We continue to do and listen and hopefully reinvent how we talk to you and how we communicate with you, because we want to make sure that obviously this school has the resources for Mary's classrooms and on that we can continue to do the great works that we're doing there at SLU. So I can't thank you enough, and I appreciate your time tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Obviously, a lot of great things, two big takeaways there. The fact that we had 300 new donors last year, that's a big number. So don't think that, you know, these efforts are falling on deaf ears. We also had over 100 of you at the phonathons. Speaking of which, we have Joe Packey here to talk about those and the important role that you all play in that equation.
Thanks, Tim. We have, I just want to reemphasize your number one priority, the number one requirement for membership on the board, the alumni board, is to take part in your phonathon and to lead your phonathon effort. So I'll remind you of that. And then I have the dates up here. I apologize to the baseball fans in the room. I may have jinxed the Cardinals this year. We used to have our phonathons in late October that fit our mailing schedule. And then it was always chaos when the Cardinals were in postseason. We had to reschedule phonathons. There would be conflicts with the Cardinals. So I moved the phonathons into November. And in doing so, I may have jinxed the Cardinals. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, well, maybe not. If anybody has a contact in the front office of the Cardinals, if the Cardinals would make a substantial donation to St. Louis U High, I'll move the phonathons back to October. But the dates are up there. And for those alums who are in the classes of 60 to 2010, this is your primary responsibility. For those who graduated prior to 1960, we consider you emeritus members. We would love to have you take part. We welcome you to take part, and we'll leave that to you. So we had last year, you'll recall, the younger alums, guys who graduated in the 90s and in the early 2000s, came in, and we listened, as Jeff said, to them. Came up with some new ways of doing things. So their phonathons will be a part of the February Frenzy process later on in the year. So the phonathons that you see up here are for those who graduated in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So you'll be getting an email about this, and I'll be pestering you, and we'll get on you and get onto those phonathons in November. It really does make a huge difference because we had over 100 of you out here. That's the reason we had 27% participation. So we really, really need your help. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Joe. I will reiterate, I will beat the dead horse. Again, we can't get enough help with those phonathons. You all received a letter, hopefully in the mail, asking for your dedication to being part of this. Yes, there's free food and free drink. We're hoping in return you can give a little bit, whether it's monetary, of your time, hopefully both. Keep in mind that that's really why we're here, to better this cause and to keep it going in the right direction and make it bigger and better. Next up, we have the school updates, typically given by Dave Laughlin, unfortunately, who could not be here. However, we have a wonderful replacement in the form of Melissa Jones, who will be here to speak for him. So come on up, Melissa.
I promise to be very brief, but yes, I know. We're running out of time. No, I'm here really to, Dave Laughlin, of course, our president sends his greetings. He wishes he could be here tonight. Mary Russo, thank you so much for that presentation. I just have to tell you, my 14-year-old daughter is in her second week of her freshman year at your alma mater, St. Joseph's Academy. So I can sincerely say that I hope she grows up to be just like you. Thank you so much for that passion, and I hope she exhibits that in her life as well. So just wanted to share with you a new admissions video. Mary mentioned it that she was gonna hold off showing her video because we would see it here. So Dave wanted me to share this information with you. We have a new admissions website. It's admissions.slu.org. Of course, I'm in advancement, but I'm going to push admissions too, right? I really want to see us be able to get out in the community, get more young men here. That's why we're raising these funds, the scholarship monies, to be able to bring in boys from all walks of life. So check out the new website, share it with your friends and colleagues, and take a look at this video, please. Thank you.
Well done, my 3 students with the drone.
Mary would like to take credit for that drone video. Her drone was put to good use for that. So real quickly, we have a few upcoming events you all can read. I'm not going to read them to you. There are some important handouts on your tables, one of which is for a trivia night that's upcoming. It's called the Mikey. It's in honor of Mike Palumbo, who passed away, class of 2000. All proceeds from that event come back to an endowed scholarship or a partially endowed scholarship here at SLU High. That's why we are promoting that event to you. The scholarship golf tournament, obviously there's a few spots left, not many. I'm not just saying that. We've all heard, oh, there's a few left and there's 50 left. There are not, I promise you. If you're on the fence, whether it's you or a fivesome, we've got room for maybe 1 or 2 more fivesomes and a handful of singles, but we welcome any and all. I've played the last 3 years. It is a wonderful event and clearly for a good cause. And then we've got open house. We've got the reunion nights, which you all heard about. But if there's any questions that we all can answer, again, the 3 other executive members stood up. You know everyone that works at SLU. Look for the name tags. I just want to reiterate, thank you all for what you do, for the reason that we're all here. I'm one of you, and I am honored to be just that. So thank you. The bar is, I presume, still open, so enjoy one if you have room and time. But otherwise, mingle, enjoy the evening, and thank you all again for being here.
So